got 15 minutes or XYZ. I haven't heard anything. There has been some sort of message from the armored car, but I don't think it was a specific message. But again, I haven't heard from police telling people to leave by 8. I haven't heard them get on any speakers or bullhorn. The demonstrators certainly have been, and there's been times I thought it was directions from police to do something, and it was a demonstrator.
Do you see the officers still making their slow push against the crowd?
We got it. Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of moved on a diagonal now. We're not up at the line, but it's kind of moved slowly and slowly. They're on a diagonal across 200 East pushing people, but it's happening extremely slowly. I haven't seen any of those, we were talking about when they kind of cover a lot of ground and shove people. That hasn't happened yet because we haven't seen anybody, running away from the police line. But it does seem like they are, edging their way. And I don't know if you can see up there, I don't think we saw that before, that sign from the stairwell that says Black Lives Matter. It's kind of curled up. But, even over there, they're demonstrating signs. Earlier today, we saw some people, throwing rocks at this window. So the protests and the demonstrations have kind of scattered, but now they're really centralized right here. And as the police, like you've said, they're inching their way down, but I haven't seen any big moves or shifts in the police line anytime soon. And like I could ask probably anybody here about that curfew, and I continue to do so, and they don't know about it. So I don't think they know if there are any repercussions to not leaving here in the next 15 minutes. So that'll be interesting to see what's going to happen, and if people will,
And the police chief has said he's going to clear the streets.
Right. That was on the megaphone. I thought that might have been an officer, but it was a demonstrator.
Okay.
I was just trying to listen to hear, but...
All right, we're going to go to Jim Spiewak back in the area of 3rd South, 2nd East. Jim, you have an arrest there that you've witnessed. Is that right?
Yeah, right over here. We've got a gentleman in handcuffs. He's being escorted away by a couple officers right now. Don't know again exactly what the incident was as we just pulled up here to, we're at 2nd East and 4th South. Now, this is the area that we were describing just a few minutes ago during our last live location where we saw a big crowd dispersing. It is getting rather windy out here. It's rather dusty. And this is where you're seeing a large congregation of folks. And essentially let me paint the scene for you. You can smell burnt char. There's just law enforcement in 360 degrees everywhere you turn and look in tactical gear. There are protesters with signs. It's vulgar, it's emotional, it's raw. And that is what we are witnessing out here right now with just a few minutes before this curfew goes into effect. It's really quite amazing and overwhelming, to say the least, the situation that is unfolding out here as we are just a few minutes away now from the curfew. So let's go ahead, if we can, Nick, over here, kind of get up on these steps to get a little bit of a different vantage point. We can get a little bit of height just to show you the volume and the sheer volume of people that are still out here. Now, mind you, according to Mayor Mendenhall, all of these people need to be inside their house in 7 minutes. That's not going to happen at this point. If you take a look out there, it's almost a sea of people at 2nd East and 4th South. A sea of protesters, a sea of police and first responders. We have been told there are state, local, and federal officials out here trying to mitigate this situation. If we look just over to our left, there's still that cop car that is on its rooftop that is still smoldering. That is the char that we are smelling out here. There are cop cars that are lining the streets in each direction as far as we can see. There is order right now, I will say that. There are people that are vocal, there are people that are loud, there are people that are in law enforcement's faces as they continue to get hydrated. It is very hot out here. It's very windy. What I'm breathing in right now is some of the char coming off of that car that protesters set on fire. So it's really quite an incredible scene out here, Brian. If you can see what we are seeing, it's incredible.
Heard from Salt Lake County Sheriff Jim Winder that going into the night is going to be critical. This is a critical time, and police, according to him, need to act swiftly. They need to act quickly. He was not critical of the initial response, even though others might say that it took a while for police to arrive at the first smoldering police car. There's the helicopter overhead. Maybe a National Guard helicopter. That's the way it looks to me, not a DPS chopper.
That's a National. That's a National Guard chopper right there. And so what police are doing right now, didn't mean to cut you off, Brian, but yeah, that's the first time we've seen one of those military-style choppers come by here. It looks like some police right now are they're gathering in groups in some areas. I have to imagine they're going over their tactical plan, because the end goal here is to get everyone inside safely by 8 o'clock. That's clearly not going to happen. We're probably inside 5 minutes from that happening. There's got to be at least 1,000 people out here. I haven't had a chance to really talk to any protesters to see if they plan on leaving right at 8 o'clock, if they even know right now if they have to be home at 8 o'clock. Hey, Nick, let's go ahead and take a look right here at this girl. She's got a skateboard. She's just sitting down right in front of police cruisers. That is a lot of what we're seeing out here. They're just sort of sitting down and standing in front of police officers, almost in like a standoff style position. I've seen that several times now while out here. And quite frankly, coming out here, there is an atmosphere of uncertainty. There is an atmosphere of you have to have your head on a swivel, because you just don't know, considering what we've seen across the country. We haven't seen anything, at least from my vantage point, anything physical yet at this point, but I've only been out here a few minutes. Obviously, when you take a look to my left and you see a charred police cruiser, you know that hasn't been the case all day long. But just looking out at the sea of people, it's hard to tell if there's one particular ringleader that might take over for the protesters and lead the charge one way or the other. It does sound as if they are starting to chant something. I'm standing a little bit far away, so I can't really hear. But we are right at the corner, if you're just joining us, it's of 2nd East and 4th South, where there is just really a sea of people, protesters. This is one of the larger gatherings throughout downtown Salt Lake City. And according to Salt Lake City Mayor Aaron Mendenhall, 3 minutes, everyone needs to be indoors. Brian?
Okay, Jim Spiewak has moved south on 2nd East down to 4th South, and that perspective of the crowd is very it says it. It really says what's going on in the city right now. We've had coverage now for almost 5 hours here on 2 News. An 8 p.m. curfew is now 3 minutes away in Salt Lake City. You can't be on the street tonight. At least that's what the city says, from 8 o'clock until 6 o'clock on Monday morning, with a few exceptions. However, we have burned out vehicles. We have broken glass. We have arrests. Jim just showed us one. We have the National Guard chopper circling overhead and a big police presence. Back to Jim.
Yeah, Brian, so just take a look at what we're witnessing out here. There's a gentleman right over here in a black hat. He's got a baseball bat in his backpack. I mean, obviously he came prepared for something, but he's one-on-one with police officers. Police officers are just standing their ground, and he's obviously got something to say. He's got something to say to officers. The sign in his hand says Black Lives Matter. And that is a sign that we've seen repeatedly throughout the afternoon, throughout this entire protest. And it's a sign that we've seen for a long, long time now. And so that is a little bit of what we're seeing out here. So he just walked away. Looks like he's going over to another police officer right now, sharing his message. I'm seeing other signs. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, seeing signs there. Respect existence. Or expect resistance. We're seeing those signs. But Brian,
Jim,
for the most part,
1 minute
and we've got
till curfew. Just to know, 1 minute to curfew.
Yeah, absolutely, Brian. And again, as we've been saying now for the last few minutes, there's just no way that curfew is going to to be adhered to, as there's so many people out here, and we've got a little bit of height. We're on some steps right now to give you a little bit more of a vantage point of what we're seeing out here. I wouldn't say in about 5-10 minutes that we've been here that the crowd has been growing. I would just say that people are out here standing around, holding their signs, holding their ground. Both sides are holding their ground right now, and this is what I would probably call a peaceful protest. I mean, protesters are they're saying what they have to say. They're holding their signs. I see one right now: no justice, no peace. But I don't see any confrontation, and it's hard to see absolutely everything because there's just so many people out here. But again, I think we just hit, looking at my watch right here, we have hit 8 o'clock. Officially, the curfew in Salt Lake City has gone into effect as of right now until 6 a.m. Monday morning, with a few exceptions. This is not one of those exceptions. As you look out and you see a sea of people at 4th South and 2nd East here in downtown Salt Lake City, you have to imagine that the governor is watching what's unfolding. The mayor is watching what's unfolding in their city. The police chief is watching what's unfolding in his city, with all of his men and women out here that are trying to maintain order. They have a huge job in front of them to try to get all of these people back to home, and do it safely. We did hear Chief Mike Brown from the Salt Lake City Police Department say a little while ago that arrests have been made. I actually, since I've been out here over the last hour or so, I've seen 2 people taken into custody, and they say we will enforce the curfew. So how they're going to enforce this remains to be seen. I mean, I think at this point, Brian, it's probably going to be a little bit of a waiting game. I've been out on protests before. I've been out on standoffs before with large groups of people. You can't just barge in from either side. There has to be a sense and semblance of order from both sides for things to end peacefully. I've seen large gatherings and large protests of 1,000 or more people end peacefully with no arrests. Will that happen here tonight? That remains to be seen. As we take a look across the street, you're seeing more law enforcement officers go through some of their tactical arrangements as they get ready to enforce this curfew, as we are now past 8 o'clock p.m. here on Saturday evening, where the curfew in Salt Lake City has officially gone into effect. Again, there are a few exceptions. A few of that I can remember off the top of my head. I confirmed with the spokesperson that churches will be open tomorrow for those that want to go. Brian, let's go ahead and send it back to you.
Okay, Jim. Jim's watching what he described as a peaceful protest now. It wasn't that way earlier. We've seen some serious violence downtown. A couple of cars ablaze, windows broken, etc., and it's spread beyond this area to City Creek. Kelly Vaughn back in position for us now. Kelly.
All right, hey guys. Okay, so curfew's in place. I haven't heard anything. I got closer to the police line to hear if they were asking demonstrators to do anything, go anywhere. I didn't hear anything. I asked some people that have been standing on the front lines for a long time. They said they haven't been in any direction. But, you know, people here, they're telling that they are ready for whatever happens. I spoke with the woman who told me this isn't her first protest. They've been sharing tips about how to handle. They're telling people what to do to handle tear gas, what to do to handle pepper bullets. They're sharing advice. People here are saying mostly that they're ready for whatever comes their way if the police do take action enforcing their curfew. Arrests aren't going to scare them away. Violence isn't going to scare them away. They're here, they're ready. And as I told you, they're kind of working together, sharing what to do if it does come to that here tonight.
So
but so far, like I said, police. Sorry, go ahead.
If they're talking about how to handle tear gas and how to handle strategy, if you will, going forward into the night, that sounds like somebody who's not just a protester or a demonstrator. That sounds like someone who, goes to these kinds of things a lot, knows what she or he is talking about, and might suggest that there's not necessarily this local groundswell only that's a part of this demonstration.
I don't know. It wasn't just one person. It was a handful of people just kind of, maybe sharing what they've heard from experience or not. I don't know. I can ask. Hey, are you from around here?
Yeah, I am.
You were saying you've been to a lot of protests, like similar ones, or?
Yes, we've been to similar protests. This isn't our first.
Yeah.
So, I think us, and happen is that they're going to have tear gas come to us. They're going to have people get arrested. They're going to shoot rubber bullets, beanbags. And what you need to do is you need to prepare for that. By preparing for that, you need to make sure your face is covered, like your eyes and your mouth and your nose. And it's not going to get in so fast. And you need to take vitamin D milk and rinse that out.
But you're from the local area?
No, I'm from Michigan.
Michigan. Okay. And did you come here today for the protest?
No, I live here.
Okay.
I'm from Michigan.
Okay.
Hey,
so I don't know
Kelly?
if you can hear that, Brian. She lives here. Yes.
Kelly, one question for her. If she knows all this is going to happen and it's not going to be pretty, why doesn't she just leave?
I just got a quick question for you. If you know that this is going to happen, why not just leave?
Because we're still here for George Floyd. We're here for Bobby Duckworth. We're here for those people that are dead and are not going to come back, and we need to stand up for them. We need to stand up to the police and let them know that you can't kill us. You can't kill us. You can't hurt us. This is us. This is our home. And we were brought here as slaves, yes, but you know what? We were here first.
All right, you heard her. And that's kind of the message that a lot of people have been saying. They don't care what's coming their way. They believe that in standing their ground for what they believe in.
Okay. Kelly, thanks so much. We'll be back to you. Jenna Rowe has moved from City Creek, where there were some broken windows and perhaps some looting. We had some images of people going in and out of one store, thought it was the Apple store. Jenna's now at the Capitol, where there was a sizable crowd at one point and a lot of Utah Highway Patrol officers as well. Jenna.
Yeah, Brian, as you mentioned, that crowd is quite a bit smaller now. There's still a significant amount of people here, but not nearly as full as it was a couple hours ago. At one point, this entire front area of the Capitol was filled, packed almost shoulder to shoulder with people, and you can see there's quite a bit of space here. I would say there are probably just about as many troopers as there are protesters here right now, and you can see those troopers are still blocking the Capitol steps. We're hearing people chanting. If you look around, we're actually not going to show you just because of the profanity, but there is quite a bit of graffiti surrounding us. The sides of the Capitol all have been tagged. We're standing kind of on the front, not lawn, but front area of the Capitol here, and that has graffiti all over it, as well as that sign right in the front that says Utah State Capitol, all covered in graffiti as well. But I do want to stress that up here, it is a much different scene. People are calm, people are chanting, but I spoke with a woman earlier and she told me, what you're hearing is anger, you're hearing frustration, but that doesn't necessarily equate to violence. So up here, people are mad, people are frustrated, they're getting their voices out, but they are remaining peaceful, and I want to make sure to get that message out as well. Brian, we'll send it back to you.
So, Jenna, a lot of people left at one point to go back downtown to join up there, and it seemed like the crowd got bigger at that point downtown. Have those folks stayed away? Any of them come back? What do you know?
Well, I guess it's really hard to say. I mean, we've seen it's a much smaller, noticeably smaller crowd here. I've seen some familiar faces that I saw earlier today, so I think some people are just choosing to stay up here. But it's hard to say. I know people have been going back and forth all day, and as you mentioned, this started earlier today and was a peaceful protest and has just developed into a much different situation as we go through the day. But up here, for the most part, I've been up here on and off throughout the day, and it has remained peaceful. There is that chanting. We have people expressing their opinion, expressing their anger and frustration. But yeah, a much smaller crowd out here.
Okay, Jenna at the Capitol, appreciate it. Now back to Jim Spiewak, near where the protest is most active, still 8 minutes after 8 o'clock. Jim.
So, Brian, we've seen a lot more law enforcement officers make their way down here to this intersection. We saw them walking down here as this seems to be one of the spots where a lot of folks are continuing to gather. As we look out again at just all of the people out there, as you mentioned, we're now a few minutes after 8 o'clock. We've got some protesters, and they are speaking their mind to law enforcement officers. This gentleman right here in the hat on the other side of the sign, he is speaking his mind. And Nick, if we can just show our viewers the woman or the person in that red bandana just a little to your left. Yeah, that person sitting on the ground right there in the bandana, just staring. She's been sitting there now for the better part of 10 minutes, just sitting on the ground and staring. I guess that's probably the definition of a peaceful protest. However, we are now into a mandatory curfew, so in effect, that person is violating the curfew. You're taking a look at Unified Police, one of their armored SWAT vehicles making their way here to the intersection, and you have people continuing to let law enforcement officers know what their thoughts are. And let's go ahead, Nick, just a little to your left, the person with the red bandana standing, looking directly at law enforcement. We're seeing a lot of that. That's kind of the standoff, the typical standoff that you'll see between protesters and law enforcement officers in situations like this. You know, Brian, if you think about what we've seen over the course of the last few days across the country, where we look at live images from cities where people are just running around and they're looting and they're breaking into places, we're not seeing that. But what we are seeing now is we are seeing a little bit more vocal protesters here, letting officers know what their thoughts are. I do want to apologize if you're picking up any profanity out here. Again, this is live TV. This is a very volatile situation that's unfolding. I'm going to try to step back so that it's not picked up on our microphone right here. But as you can see, this is the tense nature that is prone for these types of situations. But police, I will say, are maintaining their ground. They have strength in numbers right here in terms of at least this little corner of the protest that we are at right now. They are heavily armed, and they are just listening as protesters speak their frustrations and speak their minds. I want to go ahead and take a look at my watch. We are at 11 minutes after 8 o'clock right now. Law enforcement, I haven't heard a word out of them. The only time they are talking is when they are speaking tactically amongst themselves. That is, again, typical of what you see in these types of situations. They will let these folks protest peacefully as long as they're not being violent. They may yell, they may scream. As you take a listen right here, let's listen in for a second. What that gentleman is saying to the police officers is that when you come into my world, I die. That was a quote from him that he just said right there. Obviously voicing frustrations over some of the past incidents that have happened throughout the country where people have died at the hand of law enforcement. So that's what that gentleman was going down the line of police just saying right there. And as we continue to look out, about 12 or 13 minutes past 8 o'clock now into this curfew, we're still seeing quite a few people across the intersection. Again, at 2nd East and 4th South, we see another huge police line where protesters are facing off with police. And, Nick, I also want to point our viewers' attention right here to these folks that are beginning to lay down right in the middle of the street. Brian, that's an indication that these folks are not going anywhere anytime soon as they begin to sit down and lay down in the street. Again, it's still unclear if they even know that there's an 8 o'clock curfew. Obviously, if they have been out here, they might not be on social media. They're obviously not watching the news right now. They might not even be aware that there's a curfew that was put into place at 8 o'clock. We have not heard anything over a megaphone speaker to notify the crowd that there was a curfew, at least since I've been here. So what you're seeing is essentially a standoff, and that's not atypical for a situation like this, where police will let protesters say what they have to say, even if it's right up in their face, and law enforcement's going to have to assess the situation and see what the best tactical course of action is for getting all of these people to go home safely and peacefully. There are other officers behind us right now, not in the thick of things, that are kind of on standby as they are waiting around. So, that's an indication right there that it's not all hands on deck, at least in terms of the crowd right here. when you see officers like that, again, they might be posting up to make sure no one comes through those alleyways right there. I'm sure everywhere they are is for a specific reason. But that is some of what we are seeing out here. And quite frankly, I'm not seeing anyone going anywhere anytime soon. We might be out here a while, Brian.
Okay, Jim. Mitt Romney, Senator Romney weighing in. George Floyd murder abhorrent. Peaceful protests underscore the urgency of addressing injustices, but violence drowns the message of the protesters, mocks the principles of justice. That from Senator Romney today. State Rep Andrew Stoddard. Protesting at this time is very appropriate. Vandalism is not. It dilutes and distracts from a very important message. Kelly Vaughn, back at the scene where she is now, close to that second overturned and burned car. Kelly.
Yeah, we're here by where that car was burned earlier today, and I do want to point something out. I said that a man pulled a bow and arrow out. He pulled a bow and arrow out, and I've gotten a lot of messages from people who had better vantage points telling me that he actually fired. I don't know that for sure, but I just do want to say that that was a possibility. I didn't want to minimize what happened. Now, as far as what we're looking at right now, you can see the police line still here. You know, it's past curfew. I just asked the people in the crowd here if they heard about the curfew. They all said yes. I asked them, how did they hear about it? Did police tell them to evacuate? They all said no. They heard about it on social media and from other people that, were passing the message along. But just to continue that the police haven't said anything to these demonstrators. No one's been asked to leave or disperse. Police haven't said anything yet, and we haven't seen any changes as far as the police line or any actions since that curfew went into place. And most people here say that they don't plan on leaving either way. So now it just seems like a lot of people are just waiting while he's going to leave. They just plan to wait and see what happens and if anything escalates here with police officers. So if you're going to look, you can see there's this police line still here. Hey, man, we're so live on TV. Thank you. You can see the police line, people up in their face still, but it's kind of backed off in the area of this smoking car that's luckily completely, not on fire anymore. But we're just kind of waiting to see what happens. I talked to a lot of people who expect things to escalate. They're expecting tear gas. They're expecting rubber bullets. They're expecting things to escalate from here, and they're standing their ground. But so far, we haven't seen anything.
And Kelly, maybe fatigue is setting in, too, for some folks because they've been out there a long time. Some people in this crowd have been there for 5 hours, perhaps.
Hours. Yes. This has been going on a long time. But, it calms down and then it gets re-energized when there's a clash with officers or, something sets on fire. It kind of re-energizes the crowd. So I'm assuming if the police do make any moves here, things are going to pick up. The energy is going to pick up here.
Congressman Chris Stewart writing that violence only makes things worse and innocent people get hurt. What we are seeing in Salt Lake City and around the country is heartbreaking. We are better than this. That is something I think that was touched on by the governor as well this evening when he spoke about, Utah is better than this. I think maybe there's an expectation here that even if the rest of the country erupts in violence, that Utah somehow would be spared, and that is certainly not the case tonight. We'll get back to you, Kelly. Jenna up at the Capitol now this evening. Jenna, back to you.
Hey, Brian. Well, the situation is still very similar up here at the Capitol. We have a smaller crowd here, smaller than earlier today, but still quite a few people standing right at the bottom of the steps of the state Capitol. You can see troopers there, Utah State troopers, blocking the steps of the Capitol. For the most part, people have remained peaceful here today. People are chanting. People are having their voices be heard. But we have not seen any violence up here at the Capitol. Now, curfew is enacted at this point at 8 p.m. We have not seen any indication of them dispersing this crowd or of people leaving at any point. Right now, the situation is pretty stationary. People are just standing here and don't have any intention of moving from what we can tell. Brian?
Okay, the crowd at the Capitol more peaceful than it has been downtown. We haven't had any burning cars. There's been no looting, and we did see some people that appeared to be looting, perhaps, at the Apple Store downtown. downtown. Jenna, you were there. You also saw broken windows at the City Creek Center. So some private property damage, also public damage. We saw a broken window, at least one, at the police station downtown, and broken glass, broken windows at the tracks platform. We go back to Jim near 4th South and 2nd East downtown. Jim.
Okay, Brian, so we are now in the crowd right now. We came down from a little bit higher of elevation where we were, so this is really the front lines of what's going on in the city right now. As you take a look, the police officers, they are still maintaining their ground, and protesters are coming up and they're talking with them. Again, we haven't really seen anything too violent. We also see people just sitting down, lying down on the ground as well. Again, we're at the intersection of 4th South and 2nd East. Again, an indication that we're not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. I'd like to can I ask you why you're out here today? Obviously, I see your sign, you can't breathe. Why are you out here today?
I just wanted to be an ally and show solidarity.
Are you aware that Mayor Mendenhall put into effect an 8 p.m. curfew?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And so why are you deciding to stay out past the 8 p.m. curfew?
I want to make a statement. I want to make a statement. Yes. Black people are arrested all the time unjustly, and I can be arrested after 8 p.m. for standing up for something I believe in.
So you're ready to be arrested tonight?
I am.
And in your mind, that accomplishes what?
I think that it's a way to use my voice and use my privilege. I believe that I probably won't be killed when I am taken into police custody. And I think that if I can do that to make a statement and mean something, then I will.
There's obviously a lot of frustration throughout the entire country right now. Beyond frustration, what are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling sad and I feel upset. And I'm feeling disappointed.
When you look across the street and you see a burnt police cruiser, you think what? Does that accomplish anything?
I don't think that accomplished anything, but I do think that it did make a statement today.
Do you think you could have made the same statement without anyone here having to resort to violence?
I do wonder that, but I wonder if it makes people pay attention when you do resort to violence. There's so many protests that have happened and so little change has happened that we need to do something. We need to escalate.
And, you know, again, we're about 20 minutes past 8 o'clock, past this mandatory curfew. You look around, there's got to be at least 1,000 people still out here. This is just one part of the city where there's still people out. So when you look around right now, what do you think?
There's some support and solidarity, but there's so many people in Salt Lake and the surrounding areas that did not show up today, and that silence is what matters and what I'm going to be paying attention to.
When will you go home tonight if you don't get arrested?
Well, I have no plans on going home.
So you'll stay out here the entire night?
And yes, hopefully I can go home, but if I get arrested, that's the chance I'm willing to take.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Okay, so there you heard right there from a protester said she's willing to be arrested and she's not going anywhere at this point. We did hear from Police Chief Mike Brown that said that they will make arrests. They will get these folks to go home. They will get them home at one way or the other. That's something that he said publicly a little while ago. And so that's what you're seeing out here, Brian, is there's frustration out here. That woman said that she's frustrated, she's sad, and she's trying to make a stand and stand up for something, which has been widely reported. That's one of the reasons why people are out here. But that's what's going on right here on the front lines, Brian.
Okay, Jim, appreciate it. We have word now of a possible attack of a news photographer in the crowd tonight, maybe more than one. So another incident, another event that is alleged to have occurred within the crowd this evening. This wasn't an attack by police. It was somebody who was in the crowd of demonstrators. Kelly, you've got some people in your area as well who are still sticking around and don't seem to be going anywhere fast.
That's right. I've talked to a lot of people here today, and they say they're staying here no matter what. We're looking at the police line here. You can hear stuff has been thrown at them throughout the day, and they've just been deflecting it as it comes. People have been kind of getting in their face, yelling at them, talking to them, and so far we haven't seen anything. We did see someone coming through kind of maybe giving some directions to each of the officers, so we're anticipating that maybe soon they will be giving direction to some of the protesters here. So we're just staying on our toes to get ready to obey whatever they tell us to do, whether that's to clear the street or whatever happens. But, I think most people here say that they don't plan on necessarily following what the police will say, at least the people that I've spoken with. But again, so far we still haven't been given any directions. And the police have just been, maintaining this line. And for the most part, at least in these past few minutes, kind of keeping their cool as few people have gotten into their face. Water bottles are still being thrown as they have been all day long. But no change here. And we still got a large crowd kind of pushing back. Most of the people are kind of behind this car that hasn't been moved since it got set on fire earlier today. But it looks like, people are continuing to chant. You can see some people are kind of getting in the face of other officers, yelling things at them. And so far from what I've seen, they've just been kind of staying stoic. And like I've mentioned, we did see an officer kind of go to each officer and pass a message along, so it seemed like maybe they were getting ready to take some sort of action, but there hasn't been any directions or anything given to us out here yet.
Kelly, what's notable is that you were able to get close to the police line. We have had a number of shots, but not as close as we are now, I think.
Yes, it's thinner on this side because this is the side where that car is. So there's less people kind of packed together on this side. So we are able to get right up on the front. On the other side of the line, there's a bigger crowd. But yeah, we are able to get right up here. And so that's what I was looking to see if they were asking people to leave or giving any sort of direction. And so far, I haven't heard anything from them. They're just kind of remaining calm as a few people have, kind of gotten in their face, and water bottles and things like that have been thrown at them. But I do sense that something may be shifting here soon enough because we saw some.
Firing on the other side of the bridge. A few hundred